Welcome back to the Science Fictionary. Oh, whoa. Oh, I'm getting talked to by some sort of wiretapping device back here. Alexa, cancel. Wow, that was weird. Alexa wanted to give me all the updates just as we went live. But welcome back to the Science Fictionary. I am Andrew, and I'm here with one of my very favorite guests to have on here. We got Nick from the Backyard Tardis. How's it going?
Glad to be here.
Yeah,
going
well,
okay. And you were live a little bit ago, and I wanted to hop on and talk some of the Doctor Who stuff. Since Marisha's not here, I'm your Doctor Who tap.
Yeah, always glad to have you on here. But you've done quite a few guest spots with us, and we're fixing to do some fun stuff. I'm trying to do some YouTube shorts that we can do with the going back and revisiting the pillars of fantasy and sci-fi series, and going through and doing a short for each entry. And so I definitely want to get with you to see if you want to participate, because you have some entries on those lists.
Yeah.
So maybe get you back to do some quick shorts for those.
Okay.
But so we don't have a whole lot of time here, because this is kind of an add-on to our earlier show, as you were saying, because you dropped me a message and I didn't see it because I was watching more people than I'm actually used to having scrolling through the chat. But we're going to want to go fairly quick here, because what is it? It's on the fives over at the Red 5 Network channel here in about 20 minutes. So we're going to wrap up before she goes live. But Nick, I had two things I wanted to talk to you about. One is Doctor Who, because Doctor Who is one that I really need to find some way to get into, because it's such a big gap in my kind of my sci-fi knowledge, my personal lexicon of sci-fi, and it's such an important one to science fiction overall, that I feel like I need to find some way to get into it. But I know there's been some stuff going on over there lately, and I kind of wanted to give you a chance to fill me in on what's going on in the world of Doctor Who.
Yeah, it's so it's kind of been in a bad place for quite a bit here, and I would say, I definitely would say it's in a worse place than Star Wars, and probably even would say the same with Star Trek too. Mm-hmm. Going back a little bit, when Chibnall took over as showrunner of the show, they experimented with the Doctor being a woman, mm-hmm. and there was a lot of pushback against that, so to speak, from the fandom. But I'm still of the opinion that they could have done it.
Yep.
But they needed to make sure that they did it in a way that was very respectful to the fans. At the time, they got rid of all the writers they had been writing on the show, brought in a lot of activists, so a lot of the episodes had a lot of contention. But the big thing came to the head when they had the Timeless Child arc, and that was basically, they made it so that they at that point, what was like 56 years of history, completely threw it away, and they said who we know as the first Doctor was not the first Doctor. The Doctor wasn't even a Time Lord. It was some other species that the ancient Gallifreyans had found as a little girl, and they experimented on this little girl to unlock the ability of regeneration.
Okay.
And so essentially, the Doctor had been many different incarnations as a woman before they forced her to become a man and wiped her memory.
Okay.
So you could see how saying all this took place before the show started there in 63 would send ripples through the fandom.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I still, maintain that, it's great to look for new fans, but you don't want to do it at the expense of losing old fans. It's the same as a business. It's cheaper to keep existing customers than to find new ones. And
So
I think there's a lot of that. We got the C.S. Lewis stuff. The series they're working on, and I keep hearing stuff over there, and you keep going. And I think Red Pen Logic hit on it best with sometimes it's just about respecting the person that created the stuff.
yeah. Well, so that kind of brings you into where Disney steps in. So Disney does a contract for 2 seasons plus a season of a spin-off show with the BBC. So they're basically in England, it's going to be on the BBC iPlayer, but in the rest of the world, it's Disney Plus exclusive. And so Disney is basically flipping the bill for the season, in addition to Doctor Who is actually funded by British taxpayers. So it's basically giving it a bigger, better budget. And they brought in Russell T. Davies, who was the person who held the show when Eccleston and David Tennant were the Doctor. And so he's the one that, kind of brought Doctor Who back. And so fans were really excited. They had David Tennant come back as the Doctor for a series of specials. However, they made a lot of changes. That at that point, they said, well, he's not coming back as the 10th Doctor. He's going to be the 15th Doctor.
Okay.
The 14th. Make sure I remember. Yeah, 14th. For 4 specials. And so in those 4 specials, he's that face, but he's a different Doctor.
He's a different Doctor.
And they decide, okay, we're going to make him, he's going to be gay now. And then they decided that they would bring back one of his companions, and they would now have a transgender kid. And through the thing, they do a lot about reminding him to ask aliens what the right pronouns are. And so they're continuing on this politically divisive, thing. And some of this stuff can be natural. They've had characters before in the show that were LGBT, but it was very much now like that was front and center. And Russell T. Davies, when he came on initially at that, but his later half of his career has been very much activism after his life partner died. And he started going on interviews, and he was being very bold. He's being, saying that, and so pretty much every episode, had to have something of that nature in it. And it raced to the bottom of the viewing records that it was worse than in the 80s when the show got canceled.
Wow.
I mean, when you're struggling to get a couple thousand people to watch your show on Disney Plus that's on the front page.
Right. When there's web series on YouTube drawing infinitely more people, it's gotten bad.
And so, the show has kind of been in this tumultuous, just kind of like Kathleen Kennedy's fired. There's been this Russell T. Davies has been fired. The show has been canceled. And they keep coming out with press releases saying, we won't know until we finish out the contract. Like these seasons are happening. After that, we're going to revisit with Disney. So they just got to the end of it, and they kind of pulled a stunt in that they had the Doctor regenerate again. And I guess I need to back up and mention. So they had, after David Tennant's specials, they had what they called a bi-regeneration, where David Tennant's Doctor still exists, but now there's a new Doctor played by Ncuti Gatwa.
Okay.
Which, and he's a black gay man now portraying the Doctor. But now, instead of him dying and a new one taking the place, there's just now 2 Doctors.
Okay.
and they say David Tennant's doctor, he's retired and he's going to live on Earth. And this new doctor is going to take the TARDIS and he's going to go off on adventures. And so they've gone through this whole thing. This doctor has been criticized of putting his romantic interests ahead of actually saving lives, ahead of saving his companion's life.
Mm-hmm.
And he cries in every episode. And it was funny because I like what one person I was watching brought out. They said, with David Tennant, he had this line, and the first time he did it, it was so iconic, where he realized somebody was going to die, and he says, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry." And he would do this sad look, and the camera would pan to him. But by the end of his time on the show, he'd said that so many times it didn't have meaning.
Right.
And they said for the 15th Doctor, that was him crying. He was crying in every episode, whether he was crying over someone dying, crying over seeing racism. Just every episode, something brought him to visible, ugly cry tears.
Okay.
And it just not what you'd expect from Heroic. So they get to the ending episode, and he's going up against a classic villain, Omega, or some people call it Omega, but in the original it was Omega. But he's playing, he's a character that's godlike.
Okay.
And they've realized that through him, with the assistance of a right-wing podcaster, that they've been able to mind control the world. And because of it, the world is being fit into this mold, and his companion's baby has disappeared from existence. And he decides that the only way he can solve that is to get rid of his suit and put on a dress.
Okay.
And this will break the mold. And then he has to, in the season ending, he has to release his regeneration energy into the TARDIS to basically temporal shift the universe. And so he doesn't get damaged or hurt. He's purposely killing himself to reboot the universe, or to shift it a nudge, is what he's describing it as. And when he does, he becomes Rose Tyler, which was the first companion from Eccleston and David Tennant. So this got everybody excited. They thought, oh, she's going to be playing the Doctor. He's taking on the face of a previous companion.
Right.
And, and I don't know how familiar you are with the show, but Rose Tyler is played by Billie Piper, which is a UK pop star.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a lot of excitement and buzz about this, but then they realized it was a little bit of a stunt thing, because in the end credits, it always introducing actor's name as the Doctor.
Right.
But in her case, it just said introducing Billie Piper, not as the Doctor. And what some people don't realize is that technically they still have 4 more episodes with the Disney contract. So there's speculation that this will be a series of specials, and that will come. But there's a lot of up in arms, because a lot of the fans that are very critical of the show right now really like her as a character, what she portrayed previously on the show. And so they're worried about what's going to happen next. Will this bring them back? Is this just stunt casting to try to get people to tune back in again? Much like bringing David Tennant back for just 4 episodes and creating a whole Doctor regeneration just for 4 episodes seemed like, kind of a stunt to bring people back.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where it goes, because it sounds like it's kind of suffering some of the same things that a lot of other, beloved franchises are kind of struggling through right now.
Yeah. But I look at it, Doctor Who has had a history of not every Doctor hits, not every Doctor people are a fan of.
Right. And that's,
there are
of course, yeah.
been ones that have been lower and ones that have been more loved. But this complete disregard for canon with the Timeless Child and this bi-regeneration stuff makes it really hard that even if the show goes on for a pause, to do what they did with this reboot series, which was to basically pick it up and treat it like all the classic stuff happened. And it just be a continuation of the show.
Yeah.
That ran from 63 to, was it like 86? So it was quite a, you had 26 seasons of the classic, and they were able to keep the new stuff going just like it came from that. But now that they've retconned a lot of the canon or made it messy, it's going to make anybody in the future that brings it back, they're going to have hard choices of how to rectify all that.
Right. Yeah. It'll be interesting. I mean, hopefully it can find some footing and get back on track. But yeah, I figure, I'm, like I said, I'm not, Doctor Who's one that I don't have a lot of knowledge on, but it seems like when you kind of go through this cycle of reintroducing a new main character, that there's always risk with that. I mean, you can look at that. I mean, across the board when, look at like when Michael Scott left, when Steve Carell left The Office, they struggled through like a whole season and a half of just trying to find their footing of what to do without him. And it was never quite the same, even once they got a footing. And so to do that continuously with a show, you're going to have misses. So hopefully it's when they can kind of get their footing back on. But real quick before we head out, because I do want to tune out, because on the fives with Nicole just went live just a couple minutes ago. So real quick, I just wanted to kind of get your find out a little bit about this thing I saw that you were posting about, I guess this past weekend, maybe.
The Forest Moon Festival.
Yes.
So I live in Northern California. I am about, depending on which site you're going to, I'm 5 to 6 hours from where they filmed all the Forest Moon of Endor scenes.
Okay.
And so this was the third annual one, but they've started a festival where they actually have, like those blow up bouncy houses and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, they have a blow up screen that they take right out into the forest, and they at this clearing at this park, and they show Return of the Jedi.
That's amazing.
And so what was neat, they had vendors out there, so there were Star Wars jewelry and apparel, street trucks that were doing some Star Wars themed meals, and then got some lightsabers. They had lightsaber stands and stuff like that. Really cool to get out there, see the giant sequoia trees up in the redwoods. It was my daughter's first time getting to go up there. We hadn't gone that far up, so we got to drive through a couple of trees.
That's cool. Yeah, that's a bucket list item for me, is seeing those trees. So, and
it was, and they had a zoo right there. But what was really neat was, they had some Rebel Legion and some 501st members there. We got to take some pictures with, and there was a Chewbacca that was spot on. And it took my daughter back.
Some pictures with him or with your.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I saw those. Yeah, he was great. He looked great.
Oh, and it had a voice box and everything. And I mean, I don't know how tall the person was in the suit, but it was intimidating. He had a good
those
foot
suits,
and a half on it.
Those suits are impressive.
And my daughter was carrying around a creeper, a little stuffed creeper, and he tried to trade the bowcaster for the creeper. My daughter was like, no. It was, but she was very impressed. Like at first she was startled and scared, and she's like, I want to go talk to him again. I want to.
Yeah.
But we were seeing hundreds of fans out there, and I only went to one of the 3 showings. And so I went to the one in Eureka, but they had in Carson City at one of the other filming locations the night before. They had 2 showings there.
Okay.
So, which was cool. And then the next day, unfortunately, I had to get home. But I know Kyle Newman was showing off his movie along with Rebel Force Radio. So they were called out to host this year.
You showed Fanboys or?
Yes.
Okay.
So I wish I could have stayed for that, but we had things we had to get back to for.
Okay.
But it's one of those things that knowing that this is like an annual thing, and it's just a cool experience.
Yeah. No, it sounds
shows that no matter what's going on with the fandom, with the movies and stuff, the fans are still there.
The fans are still there, and the fans still love Star Wars. And that's why I tell people, like, don't get overly invested in what you see online. That represents a slice of the fandom. If you want to know what the real state of the fandom is, go to a convention. Go find your local 501st. Go find the Rebel Legion. Go hang out with those guys, and you will see, there's still so much good in the fandom and so much enjoyment in the fandom. And it hasn't all been just, some people act like, and look, Lucasfilm's done some things I don't like, but to act like they've just robbed everyone of their joy of the fandom. No, there's still a lot of enjoyment to be had in the fandom.
Well, I tell people I understand where they are because I was their way after the prequels. Yeah. I felt it was not a good representation of Vader's character, and I kind of stepped away. I got way more into Stargate and Star Trek at the time, and I didn't watch Star Wars until I heard that Disney bought it.
Okay,
and that piqued my interest.
Yeah,
and now I think I don't have this precious, pearl clutching moments when I see stuff I don't like in Star Wars, because I've been there. I lost this impression that everything's going to be perfect and to my liking. But what it was is, years later, you realize that, X-Wings and droids and lightsabers are cool. And that love is still there. And I think we have a generation that in another 10 years or so, the crowd that is just bent on Star Wars is dead, I think a lot of them are going to come back. They're either going to see something and then go, that's really cool, whether it's an animation, a fan project or something. They're just going to rekindle the fact that they love this franchise.
Right.
But I understand getting to a point where you can't even look at even the stuff you like, because I was there for a while.
Yeah.
But then over time, that just kind of softens. And so I definitely think that, a couple of good movies and Star Wars could be right back on top.
Oh, I agree. I think so too. So we'll see where that goes, but we're going to hop out of here and we're going to go over and go see what's happening on the Red 5 network with Nicole over there. So Nick, thanks for joining me. Thanks for sharing with us about Doctor Who and what was the festival called?
Forest Moon Festival.
Forest Moon Festival. Awesome.
Yeah, so it happens. It'll be an annual thing here at the end of May.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we're going to hop out of here. Be sure to, like, subscribe, check out the rest of my shows, and go check out everything else on the Red 5 Network. Lots of good shows over there, including Backyard Tardis. So go check it out. Until next time, may the Force be with you.
May the Force.